Hello and welcome to 7 Days in Europe. It's scarcely an exaggeration to say Europe's boat was rocked by the revelations from the whistleblower Edward Snowden of a massive spying operation by the American National Security Agency of European citizens' digital data. There's been talk in some quarters of betrayal by a close ally. Parliament's Civil Liberties Committee is almost halfway through its inquiry, inviting many outside experts to cast light on the affair. One member of that committee is my guest this morning, Axel Voss, a German MEP from the EPP. A very warm welcome. We'll come to a discussion about the scandal in just a moment. First, though, let's kick off with our habitual round of quick-fire questions demanding a simple answer, yes or no. Are you ready?
Yes.
Okay, let's start. Axel Voss, are you shocked by the scale of this NSA spying activities?
Yes.
Are European citizens right to be outraged?
Yes.
Do you think snooping advances the cause of counter-terrorism?
Yes.
Do our own governments also troll our data, only we don't know anything about it?
Yes.
Do you see a link between this and corporate American interests?
Yes.
Is our data well enough protected, do you think, at the moment?
No.
Should bilateral agreements either in the pipeline or existing between the US and the EU be cancelled or at least suspended?
No.
Let's turn to German politics. Did the scale of the Angela Merkel victory in Germany's election last week surprise you?
A little bit, yes.
Did the defeat of the Liberals surprise you?
Yes.
And does that weaken the Christian Democrat cause in Germany?
Yes.
Let's look at farm reform now in Europe. It's taken a long time to push this one through, but do you think we've got a good deal?
Yes.
Do you think that we've got a greener farmer environment?
Yes.
And do you think that big business farming interests have been supported by this?
Yes.
Okay, bong marks the end of that little round. We'll return to many of these questions perhaps in a moment during the course of our interview. But let me ask you first, Axel Voss, how do you deal with this whole thing? I mean, clearly relations between the EU and the United States are absolutely vital and very, very historic. Yet at the same time, a red line was crossed by the United States in terms of what Europeans regard as acceptable. What's your middle line through this?
Es ist in der Tat sehr schwierig, im Moment eine vernünftige Linie zu bekommen, weil wir auf zwei Seiten kämpfen müssen. Wir haben einmal das Sicherheitsthema, wo wir sehr stark mit den USA auch kooperieren müssen und wollen. Und wir haben auf der anderen Seite das darüber hinausschießende Element, wo einfach mehr Daten abgegriffen werden, als für die Sicherheit notwendig ist. Und das Gleiche gilt zusätzlich auch im wirtschaftlichen Bereich, wo die großen Internetunternehmen ein Modell erfinden, um unser ganzes soziales Verhalten irgendwie einzufangen und zu analysieren. Und das sind zwei verschiedene Richtungen, die wir irgendwie einrahmen müssen und sagen müssen, das geht und das geht nicht. Und das ist sehr schwierig. Ich selber bin auch persönlich, würde ich jetzt mal sagen, sehr geschockt, ob dieses Ausmaßes an Datensammlung, das Ausmaß an entsprechenden Analysen. Und das ist etwas, wo ich sagen würde, das geht nicht.
And what is the red line, do you think, that Europe should say, okay, this won't happen, we will not tolerate this kind of activity beyond this point? What is that point?
Wir müssen versuchen klarzumachen, dass wir durchaus wollen, dass verdächtige Handlungen, verdächtige Personen analysiert und beobachtet werden, aber eben nicht die Unverdächtigen. Und das, meine ich, ist eine der roten Linien, wo wir einen unterschiedlichen Ansatzpunkt haben und wo wir sagen müssen, nein, wir wollen eben nicht, dass der einzelne Bürger so ausgespäht wird, dass man in sein Privatleben gucken kann. Und da, finde ich, ist eine rote Linie einfach überschritten.
Okay, let's hold that thought right there. We'll return to this in just a moment. First, though, let's take a look at a brief roundup of other news in Parliament this week with my colleague Caroline Grasso.
Et les trois finalistes du prix Sakharov sont Edward Snowden, informaticien accusé d'espionnage par les États-Unis, Malala Yousafzai, jeune militante pakistanaise pour le droit à l'éducation des filles, et les prisonniers biélorusses Ales Bialatsky, Edouard Lobo et Mykola Stakevich. Le lauréat sera connu le 10 octobre et recevra son prix le 20 novembre à Strasbourg. Le prix Sakharov du Parlement européen récompense chaque année des défenseurs des droits de l'homme et de la liberté d'expression. Réforme de la politique agricole commune, on y est presque. Lundi soir, les députés de la Commission Agriculture ont donné leur aval au compromis trouvé la semaine dernière entre la Commission européenne, les États membres et le Parlement européen. Objectif annoncé, une PAC plus jeune, plus verte et moins bureaucratique. Dernières étapes, le vote en session plénière avant la fin de l'année et si tout va bien, le lancement de la réforme début janvier 2014. Non aux nouvelles règles sur le temps de vol et de repos minimum des pilotes. Lundi, les députés en charge des transports ont rejeté les propositions de la Commission européenne. La nouvelle loi prévoit notamment qu'un pilote pourra atterrir 22 heures après s'être réveillé, trop pour les pilotes venus manifester leur mécontentement à Bruxelles.
Solution would be to have a third pilot on flights which are really critical.
L'ensemble des députés a jusqu'au 25 octobre pour appuyer ce rejet et obliger la Commission à élaborer de nouvelles propositions.
Axel Voss, let's look in a bit more detail at Europe's reaction to this. Many MEPs are calling for the cancellation and suspension of key agreements between the United States and Europe. If you look at the response, for example, of the Brazilian president to the allegations that her office was spied on, she cancelled a state visit and lodged a very strong protest in New York at the UN General Assembly. Should Europe not also be reacting in an equally strong manner?
Europa sollte auch in einer ähnlichen Weise reagieren. Wir werden das höchstwahrscheinlich auch tun, aber wir wollen es auf die Grundlagen und Tatsachen dann stellen. Deshalb wollen wir diese Grundlagen versuchen zu erkunden und zum Ende des Jahres hin eine Empfehlung, auch politische Empfehlung abgeben. Und die wird, glaube ich, schon einige Dinge enthalten, die den Amerikanern dann letztlich auch wehtun werden. Nur wenn die Amerikaner das Gefühl haben, sie könnten uns hier ignorieren, dann ist das der falsche Weg. Und wir werden das deutlich machen. Und es ist auch nicht einzusehen, warum wir als Partner da über solche Dinge nicht sprechen können.
Let me put this question to you. In today's globalized, digitalized world, what in your opinion is the value of the whistleblower?
Wir haben es den Whistleblowern zu verdanken, dass wir überhaupt über das Ausmaß der Ausspähung erfahren, dass wir wissen, dass es eigentlich bestimmte rote Linien überschreitet, dass es zu sehr in das Privatleben der Einzelnen hineingeht, indem man analysiert, wer mit wem, wann, wie, wo Kontakt hat. Und das ist ein Verdienst der Whistleblowers und deshalb müssen wir da auch tätig werden, um auch zu sagen, wir wollen sie auf einer Seite schützen und auf der anderen Seite aber auch ihnen einen Weg aufzeigen, wo sie nicht in Konflikt geraten mit dem Gesetz.
European citizens have frequently proved to European politicians, often to their surprise, that data protection is an absolutely vital issue as far as they're concerned. And we're going through data protection procedures at the moment here in the European Parliament. Doesn't it make a farce of that process to protect our data when you have activities like this by the Americans and also by our own governments, as you mentioned earlier on?
Ja, wir haben schon bislang eigentlich mehr auf der Ebene der kommerziellen Daten uns damit beschäftigt und kommen jetzt in eine Region hinein, wo wir auch wo es offensichtlich wird, dass Staaten auch auf die Datensammlung privater Firmen zugreifen. Und das macht das Ganze noch mal wieder komplizierter. Und insofern werden wir in der Datenschutzreform auch auf die Schnelligkeit jetzt hin einige Dinge implementieren, von denen wir vorher nicht dachten, dass wir sie implementieren müssen. Aber diese neue Entwicklung hat uns gezeigt, dass es auch in den weiteren Entwicklungen immer weitergehen wird, wo das Privatleben ausgespäht wird. Und das ist etwas, wo wir jetzt sagen müssen, so geht es nicht.
Just one final thought on this question before we turn to one other topic. Are we looking at the wrong enemy here? Should we not actually be worried about what China and Russia are doing in terms of their data trawling of citizens' data?
Das ist eine gute Frage. Wir wissen soweit im Moment nur, dass die NSA oder auch der britische Geheimdienst dort etwas ausspäht. Wir müssen aber davon ausgehen, dass andere Länder das genauso tun wie Russland oder China. Und wir müssen einen Weg finden, wie wir generell aus dieser Situation herauskommen. Und dafür, glaube ich, brauchen wir einen eigenen europäischen Weg, auch in der Technologie. technologischen Offensive.
Okay, we've just time to make a massive U-turn and look at one other big topic in the Parliament this week, and that's the narrowing down of the nominations for the Sakharov Prize and the award of that prize announced at plenary session next week in Strasbourg. Your group supports the nomination of Malala Yousafzai, the 16-year-old Pakistani girl who was shot by the Taliban. Why? What is special about her cause and case?
Also mit der von uns nominierten Preisträgerin verbinden wir ja zwei Dinge. Zum einen die Frage der Bildung, was wir als sehr zukunftsorientiert sehen, und aber auch den fundamentalen Grundsatz der Gleichbehandlung der Geschlechter, also von Mann und Frau. Und das ist etwas, was uns sehr imponiert, insbesondere auch an der jungen Pakistanin. Und wir hoffen, dass wir damit auch ein Zeichen setzen können, dass wir uns eben nicht zufrieden geben mit einer unterschiedlichen Wirklichkeit zwischen Mann und Frau, sondern dass auch jeder hier das Recht hat auf Bildung, das Recht auf Zukunft, auch dort durch Bildung sich zu qualifizieren und darüber hinaus auch die gleichen Rechte für Frauen zu implementieren.
Okay, Axel Voss, many thanks indeed for steering us through the complexities of this complex issue on the spying scandal. Thanks very much indeed for joining us.
Thank you.
Hello.
Hello and welcome to 7 Days in Europe. It came as something of a surprise to many members of Parliament's Environment Committee 2 weeks ago when a vote on measures to strengthen reform of Europe's carbon emissions trading system, the ETS, were voted down. That the ETS, which is the world's biggest carbon emissions trading system, needs fixing, no one is in any doubt. The price of carbon emissions has fallen so much that the incentive for polluting industries to introduce green innovations, which was the point of the thing in the first place, has all but disappeared. No one was more surprised than my first guest, Dan Rgensen, a Danish MEP from the Socialists and Democrats group, who, if I'm right, is serving his last term in the European Parliament to go into national politics back home. OK, we'll come to the ETS and its woes in just a moment. First, though, we'll play our habitual quick-fire round of questions in which you have to answer simply yes or no. Are you ready?
That's a bit of a challenge for a politician, as you know, but I'll try.
Nonetheless, it's obligatory.
Okay.
Are you ready? OK, let's go. Dan Rgensen, is the ETS dead?
No.
Has it achieved anything significant so far?
Yes.
Are lobby interests too strong for Parliament to resist on the question of emissions?
For some, yes.
The Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change produced its 5th report at the beginning of last week. Were there any big shocks in its findings for you?
No.
Do you share the apocalyptic vision that the IPCC says could well befall us?
Yes.
Do you believe that there's still time to do something?
Yes.
Do you believe that climate change deniers have hijacked the communication on climate change?
No.
Do you think that we're focusing on the wrong question, CO2, and where we should be focusing on methane gas emissions, which are far, far stronger?
No.
Do you think the climate change deniers have any case at all?
No.
Do you think on the NSA spying scandal you studied in Washington, I know, do you think they've gone too far with their digital intelligence gathering?
Yes.
OK, bong means that's the end of our round. That wasn't so bad, was it?
In a way it was, because many of those questions, it goes without saying that you need long explanation.
You do.
We'll get into that,
we
I'm
may
sure.
have a chance to expand on some of those questions. First of all, can we look at the emissions trading system in Europe? Is this the best answer that Europe has got, do you think, or at least a major part of the answer to the whole question of cutting emissions in Europe?
When we talk about the global efforts to do something about climate change, everybody looks at Europe to take leadership. China, the developing countries, the US. So we need to take the lead, and the way that we've chosen to do that is by reducing our own emissions by 20% in 2020. Now, I think that should be higher, but that's a completely different discussion.
But which we're on target to do.
Which we are on target to do. But let me just finish this. So that's one reason we really have a responsibility to keep the process going by being the most ambitious power in the world on this issue. So that's one thing. The second thing is that, we're in the middle of a crisis. We have 25 million unemployed persons in Europe. How do we get out of that crisis? Well, I think it's pretty obvious that one thing that we do know about the future is that the countries and the regions in the world that are most innovative and most energy efficient, they are also the ones that are going to be most competitive. So for us, really, this is about saving the environment, saving the climate. Yes, obviously, that's the primary reason, but it's also about creating green jobs.
And yet we have an emissions trading system which just doesn't work. It's a key component of Europe's effort to reduce carbon emissions, isn't it?
I wouldn't say that it just doesn't work, because what it will deliver is that we will reduce our emissions by 20% in 2020. No,
polluting industries aren't incentivized at the moment with carbon emissions trading at just over €5 per tonne.
But this is a cap and trade system. So the cap part is there. Doesn't matter how the price is, we will reduce by 20%. Now the trade part, the one that's supposed to give incentive, means that if the price is high enough on carbon, then the companies that do the innovation, that do the reform faster than they have to, they can then sell their allowances and use some of the revenue to finance that development. Now that incentive is not there, but that doesn't mean we won't have the reductions. It just means that we won't use the system in the best possible way.
ETS is coming up for a debate in plenary session in Strasbourg next week, but no vote, as you might have hoped for. Where does Europe go next on the question of reforming the system?
Well, we just had the first part of the 5th report from the United Nations Climate Panel, and this tells people that really we need to fundamentally transform the way we produce and consume energy if we are to avoid reaching a point of no return, after which we will no longer be able to save the climate. So the science really tells us this is extremely serious and we have a very short time to change it. We need to act, and one thing we could do is say, okay, let's have a minimum price on CO2 that's much higher than the one we have now on the allowances. Or we could, which I would hope for, change our ambitions. So that instead of saying we will reduce by 20% in 2020, let's go to 30% in 2020. So if we want to be world leaders and we're not even fulfilling the targets of the United Nations, I mean, then are we world leaders? No, I don't think so.
You've just spent quite a bit of time on a road trip around Europe gauging public opinion. Do you think European citizens get this? Do they get the threat to the environment?
Certainly. When you ask European citizens, and this is not just something that I've discovered on my trip, it's also something that we know from opinion polls, what are the most important things that we should cooperate on in Europe? They say two things usually: climate change and environment as one, and fighting organized crime as the second. So climate change is high on the agenda. It's also something where I think normal citizens understand that this is a topic that cannot be solved by any one country on its own. We need to cooperate, and Europe needs to take the lead.
And can you build growth into economic recovery, for example, in Europe through green innovations?
I think we can. Not only do I think we can, I think we have to. I mean, the prices of oil, for instance, are going to explode in the future. Even now we see that the scarce resources of this planet are starting to become more of a question than it's ever been before when we compare which countries are competitive and which are not. But also, if we look at what we actually have decided, I mean, we've just decided on the budget for the EU for the next 7 years, and here we've earmarked 20% of all EU subsidies to climate-related issues. So really, we are going in the right direction, even though the ETS votes didn't go as they should have.
And just one final thought. What about the idea that you don't have growth, that growth is a bad thing because growth generates more pollution?
I don't believe in that. I mean, no matter how we deal with the future, we know that we will be 9 billion people in 2050. We're already 7 now. So if we don't grow and innovate, we won't be able to have a sustainable future. I mean, the innovation that we need can only come if we also grow. So it's actually the opposite of what some people have usually argued, that the more we grow, the harder it will be for the environment. Well, I think we're in a situation now where the growth is actually necessary because it will push the innovation that will make a sustainable future possible.
Okay, Dan Rgensen, thank you very much indeed. There would be plenty more to say on these topics, but I'm afraid we've run out of time. Thanks very much indeed for joining us.